was ever looked into, and what it does is, you know, it puts everything in objectively into a basket, and numerically and financially it goes in and sorts it out, so there's no bias from one commissioner or another that I think, you know, could definitely help the, you know, the court and to judiciously use our money in a way that we cut down on the pork that was suggested in this May road bond, you know, which would kill.
A lot more scientific approach that puts a lot more, you know, the decision-making principles into play there. Because as you know, the needs are different around our county. You know, you look at the growth in South County versus Northeast County or East County and West County, and the traffic patterns and the congestion are different. So I think merely taking a fixed number, cutting it into 4 pieces, and giving that out on a precinct or commissioner by commissioner basis, perhaps may not be the best way to do that.
Is decision analysis something that you can do in your position to recommend to them, to utilize as a tool, both from an engineering perspective, Mark Mooney and his office, as well as the commissioners? I mean, he can ramrod it. I mean, we're looking at it from the standpoint of mid to long-term planning, because that's what's been lacking in this county. You know, everything's been a knee-jerk reaction, and we ended up with so much pork in it and traffic problems that, oh, we gotta go from one, you know, emergency to the next. And that's how we get stuck with all this, because everybody's complaining the traffic's so bad, you know, and that's what happened this May 9th road bond. You know, most people thought, well, they just think anybody's gonna take what they give to us and vote yes for it because of the pipeline fiasco, the Woodlands Parkway bridge fiasco, the traffic was tied up. So can your office do anything to suggest to the commissioners that we look into that? And I know you're probably familiar with it from your oil and gas background.
Right. You know, we can, whether as you know, given our role, what they look to us to is legal advice and counsel. So whether it would be received any better than perhaps, you know, when you had suggested on several occasions. And I don't know what, if any, level of understanding there really is of those principles and those concepts amongst the court. And so I still think a better approach is back through an individual commissioner or commissioners or the county judge. But certainly I would be an advocate for it. I just don't know that they're looking for that from us.
Well, Judge Doyle's familiar with it. He said he was.
I heard him say he was.
And Commissioner Nowak said he was familiar with it. He told me that he was, and I knew he probably was from his finance background. And I think it's just a matter of, you know, training these other guys, show them what it's all about. Mark Mooney as an engineer should be able to grasp that pretty quickly and run with it, and then you know, I mean, there can be some hand-holding with the other commissioners. They're probably not familiar with it to utilize that just by setting up the structure and running with it. I think it would be a big help to the county. Anyway.
And as you mentioned, Mark Mooney, the county engineer, certainly would also be a good source. He's clearly in a different role than we are, and it might be something that they would latch onto there. And certainly between, as you say, Judge Doyle and Commissioner Nowak have indicated they're familiar with it. So to try to promote that within their group, I'm not aware that's been undertaking at all, other than you mentioning it in Commissioner's Court on those occasions.
Okay. I think we got time for one more question around the table.
Okay. I apologize, I didn't get a chance to read your answers before now, but you mentioned that your staffing has not increased since you were elected, but could you compare your staffing and your budget to 2 years before you were elected or some time period in there?
Yeah, we are essentially the same as it has been, although, and I'll touch on this, our workload has increased dramatically.
You mentioned that.
But my budget is roughly $2.2 million, roughly a staff of 30. We have, I'd have to count the exact numbers, about 14, I think, attorneys, 10 or so legal assistants, 2 police investigators, they're master peace officers. I have a victim assistance coordinator that works closely with our victims of juvenile crime, and then myself and an admin manager that kind of keeps track of making sure, everybody gets paid and all the expense statements. I mean, it's, handles it for all 30 of us. So we haven't added any to that staff. We have upgraded the staff substantially in terms of their skills and expertise, and as I mentioned earlier about subject matter experts in each area. One thing we have seen, because I think we have really, we had to get through the initial hurdle of building the level of trust and confidence, particularly among the members of Commissioners Court. Here I am coming from the outside, having worked with them, and the key attorneys that I brought in, I hadn't worked with them, and I think we have made incredible strides doing that. You may remember a situation where some people looked at it as I took on the sheriff in my very first week in office in Commissioners Court. And people came up to me and said, JD, you are crazy, what are you doing? I never looked at it like I was taking on the sheriff, but I thought it was the right thing to do and it needed to be done then. And because of the confidence and the prompt response time and the sound legal advice we have given our clients, our workload has increased many-fold. Because I know when I was running for office, one thing one of my opponents always said, well, they don't come to us and ask that. They haven't come to us about that. I don't look at it as our job to sit back and wait till the clients come to us. So we are very proactive in these things, particularly like labor and employment. When you've got 2,200, 2,300 employees, there's always something going on in the labor employment arena. And a lot of the employees are covered by civil service. None of my staff are. But the largest employer or in the county is the sheriff. He has over 700 employees. So about 1/3 of our clients work for Sheriff Gage. And as a result of the trust and confidence they built in us, I mean, the calls are kind of nonstop every day. We may hear, when I come into work, okay, here's what we're going to do today. We may not get to those things because some fire has occurred, this needs to be dealt with, or this has happened. But I appreciate that, and I'm glad that's happened. But it's got us pretty swamped at times. But I haven't done anything, haven't asked for any additional people. One thing I will point out where that probably will have to change. We thought the legislature would do it this time. That's another area where we were working with the legislature on, but they chose not to do it. I think it will happen the next session probably, is changing the age range of juveniles. Because now if you're 17, you get prosecuted by and go to crime or charged with a crime, you get prosecuted by the DA's office. I think the legislature's probably going up that to 18. So juveniles then would be from 10 years old through 17. And so we researched and looked at, well, how many 17-year-olds had the DA's office prosecuted in, I think, 2014, I believe was the year I looked at, and it was about 250. So if that's a good number, then our caseload on the juvenile side would go from like 1,250, 1,300 cases. You'd add another, say, 250 or so when they do it. And for 2 juvenile prosecutors, that is a tremendous workload. So we may have to ask for another person if the legislature does that to us. Okay. Otherwise, we stay flat.
And very briefly, though you kept the staff flat, what has happened to the budget?
Very little has happened to the budget. The only thing I have done is I have 3 what I'll call chief positions. Because one thing you look at, if you look at our salaries in my office compared to the DA's office, we're notably, an attorney with this kind of experience in the county attorney's office is notably underpaid compared to a similar person in the district attorney's office. And what they do is very important as well, but I think what we do, because we cover such a broad arena, as I described earlier, the things we do, it's all across the table. So we can't just say, well, this person now is going to fill in for this person or this fill for this one. There are areas of expertise. Maybe your juvenile law, maybe your government affairs, maybe your real estate. Well, that's where it's so different than the DA's office. And so I was successful in the last budget year of getting some pay increases for those positions. I mentioned that's one challenge we're going to face in the coming year. In fact, I'm losing a fine attorney January 4th or 6th I think is his last day. Young attorney I brought in doing a fine job for us. Y'all may have seen him in Commissioner's Court, John McKinney. Does a great job, and he is delighted doing what he's doing, but he's got a young family. And he was recruited by the law firm that does all the tax collection, and everything for the county, the Lambright, so forth firm. And they, I don't know the exact specifics of the number, but it was substantially more. And I hate to lose him, but I can't fault him for doing that. So that's one reason I mentioned, I think that's going to be a challenge, not just within the private sector, but within, I think we ought to be on much more parity with the DA's office. And I think the reason for that is a much more aggressive approach by their leadership than historically there's been in the county attorney's office to keep us on some kind of a par. So I've got some very fine, very experienced attorneys in our office as well.
Brett's not poaching for you, then.
No, it's going the other way. I've heard two away from the DA's office.
For less pay?
No, they came across at the same. I haven't, one victim assistance coordinator who just does a bang-up job for us. So she came across in the same, and I guess the other one actually came before I took office, and just a brilliant attorney. He's about 17 years of experience, and he's the one of my proudest accomplishments is this, what I call the burning death case, where finally, after 15 years, we got justice for that Middleton family. But for the efforts of this Attorney Brumberger I mentioned, I don't think that would happen. And from the moment, I'm the one that reopened the case, I personally filed the capital murder charges, and now that young man is sitting in prison with a 40-year sentence. And the DA, since he was prosecuted eventually as an adult, the DA has asked us to handle the appeal. We're not assisting in the appeal, we are handling the appeal, even though it's an adult case. And we started preparing for the appeal from the moment we reopened that case, because we knew it would get appealed. It's a very, very difficult case, but so far we've kept that young man in prison for about 3 years, and we hope to prevail on it.
Do you have a question, or do we want to wrap it?
We can wrap it up.
Okay, so you're welcome to take up to 5 minutes if you like on the closing.
Okay, I think I can be brief. And again, I appreciate the opportunity in y'all doing this, because I know you put in a very diligent effort and go to great lengths to be as objective in this as possible. But I've enumerated some of the things we have done in the office. Another thing, there's been a number of proud accomplishments. The one I think that stands out is the case I just talked about, where the little boy was set on fire on his 8th birthday. But another one, this Texcom lawsuit over the toxic well case. That case has been going on, I think, about 8 years now, long before I came into office. And we continue to vigorously fight that case. That case was actually farmed out to an outside firm some years ago, before I came in. But we work very closely with that firm. The case is actually in Austin, and it's an Austin law firm that has a lead on it. But we work very closely. I think we have a much more partnership relationship with that firm now. But one thing that did happen on that case during my first term here is Texcom sued Montgomery County and sued each member of our commissioner's court. And I believe the number they put in there was $50 billion. It was a federal civil rights lawsuit claiming we had essentially taken their land because we weren't letting them do what they wanted to do with the land. Historically, that case would have been handled outside the county attorney's office, but we have the expertise and the talent to do that inside. We prevailed on that. It was a federal lawsuit in Houston. We prevailed on that. They asked for a rehearing of the federal judges. We prevailed on that. Then they appealed it to the federal Fifth Circuit in New Orleans, and we prevailed on that. So that case is now over. But that case, I mean, the state case involving the injection well is still going on. That's still going on.
Still hasn't made it to
the next hearing on that is February. I'll get exactly roughly mid-February. But that's an example. The estimate we would make is an outside firm to handle all those aspects of that federal case involving Texcom. Outside attorney fees would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $200,000. We handled it 100% in-house, won it every step of the way. One of their attorneys was a former justice on the Texas Supreme Court. Another one of their attorneys was with Vincent Elkins and Baker Botts and Bracewell and Giuliani. I mean, big time law firms. But we put our pants on just like they do, and we've got some incredible talent in my office. So that's an area where we have really saved the county a lot of money, is being able to do these things inside. We were seeing, when I came in, we'd see bills from outside lawyers for $800 an hour. You compute what my guys get, and I think the tops is $50 or so an hour. So I'm proud of our accomplishments. We want to continue that, continue to do the right thing, and continue to hold on to the people we've got, and continue to improve our efficiency and our effectiveness with the clients. And I remember one of our, I've heard this on a number of occasions, that I tell my clients, get out with the clients. Tell my people, get out with the clients, and don't just sit in the office. And I've heard repeatedly of how we get answers out of your office, and we get turned around very quickly when we need something. It may not be the answer they want, but they have really come to respect us, because we're going to tell you what you need to know. Hopefully it's what you want to know, but we got to give you the right legal answer first. And we've made every effort to do that, and have gained a lot of support. That's the reason, the office being nominated for those awards are chosen by outside entities, and a lot of those nominations came from our clients that are nominating us for those. So that really tells me a whole lot about what we're doing out there, and I just want to keep that up, keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, great, thank you very much, appreciate you coming out tonight.
Oh, thank you, my pleasure to be here.